Hello, this is Mrs. Sargent, and this is lesson 5.3, Converting Between Particles and Moles. You should have received a mole map like this in class, and we're going to use this mole map to help us solve these problems. So our first problem says to determine the number of moles in 3.54 times 10 to the 24th atoms of copper. We're given the 3.54 times 10 to the 24th atoms of copper, so that's what we're going to start with. We want to find moles. If we take a look at our mole map, we are starting here with atoms, and we want moles. So we're going to go from here to here. So number of particles is what we're starting with. 1 mole over 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd particles. And in that case, this is going to be our atoms of copper. Atoms of copper will cancel, and 3.54 divided by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd should give you 5.88 moles of copper. Our next problem asks us to determine the number of atoms in 1.40 moles of mercury. So we're given 1.40 moles of mercury. We want atoms. So now, if we look at our mole map, we are now starting at moles, and we want to go to atoms. So our conversion factor is going to be 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms over 1 mole. So we're going to cancel out our moles of mercury. 1.40 times 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd is going to give us 8.42 times 10 to the 23rd atoms of mercury. The next problem says how many moles of sucrose are equal to 3.50 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of sucrose. So we're going to start with our 3.50 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of sucrose. And if we look back at our mole map, we are starting with molecules and we want moles. So it's going to be 1 mole over 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of sucrose. Molecules of sucrose are going to cancel out, and we're going to be left with 0.581 moles of sucrose. Our next problem says, given 1.25 moles of copper chloride, how many chlorine atoms are there? I want to point out that you have more than just your chlorine atoms in copper chloride, so we can't go straight from moles to chlorine atoms. We're going to have a few more steps. So we're going to start with our 1.25 moles of copper chloride. And copper chloride is ionic, so we're going to label it with formula units. So we are now starting with our moles, and we need to go to formula units to start with. So we're going to do 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd formula units over 1 mole. We don't want formula units, we want atoms of copper, or we want atoms of chlorine. So in 1 formula unit of copper chloride, we have 2 atoms of chlorine. Excuse me. So now our formula units will cancel. We're going to be left with atoms of chlorine. And you should get 1.51 times 10 to the 24th atoms of chlorine. One last problem says how many moles of carbon tetrachloride contains in 4.52 times 10 to the 24th atoms of chlorine. So again, you have more than just chlorine in carbon tetrachloride. So we're going to have a few more steps here. So this is my atoms of chlorine. And that's what we're given. Okay, we want moles of carbon tetrachloride. Carbon tetrachloride is CCl4. Okay, so in 1 molecule of carbon tetrachloride, we have 4 atoms of chlorine. So that gets rid of our atoms of chlorine. We don't want molecules of chlorine, we want moles. So in 1 mole of carbon tetrachloride, we have 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of CCl4. So now molecules of carbon tetrachloride cancel out, and we're going to be left with moles of carbon tetrachloride. So 4.52 times 10 to the 24th times 1 divided by 4 times 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd, you should get 1.88 moles of carbon tetrachloride. So that's it, just a few example problems to help get you started on converting from particles to moles. Go ahead and take a look at the practice in your packet and stop by and ask questions if you have any. Thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.